Attention, an artificial object has been discovered on Mars. What is this? A message from aliens or a harbinger of the apocalypse? That's what the headlines of publications adored by conspiracy theorists and reptiloid witnesses would sound like. But we are not them. The Hubble channel invariably tries to get to the bottom of any phenomenon or event by presenting the opinions of the parties and the results of authoritative research. So everyone knows that no representative of mankind has visited any other celestial body than the moon. But the Earth's footprint is still present both within the solar system and beyond its borders. While Elon Musk is outfitting a manned expedition to Mars designed to become a real sensation, on the Red Planet for many years of astronomical research settled a lot of probes that will never return to Earth. It would seem that all space agencies know about it, but sometimes finding fragments of vehicles sincerely wonder where they came from on the dead surface of Mars. Once in one of the locations of our dusty neighbor was recorded an artificial object in the form of a cylinder shining in the sun, standing out among the stone scatterings. How did this fragment appear on the Red Planet, and what other surprises await us? In fact, Mars can be called conditionally inhabited without exaggeration, as traces of our civilization are increasingly recorded among its rusty hills. Right now, the planet is explored by several active probes, the hulks of others, long out of service, buried in the Martian sands. Interestingly, the total mass of such objects at the moment reaches about 7 tons. Since 1971, the Red Planet has been visited by 16 Earth probes with varying success. Naturally, they could not help but leave their mark on the surface of Mars. The appearance of the mysterious cylinder also has a logical explanation. Most likely, it's a casing that fell off the Viking 2 probe during landing, but all in order. The mentioned spacecraft sent to Mars as part of the American program Viking and worked on the Red Planet for more than 19 months. The station consisted of orbital and descent modules, with the first failed 2 years earlier. At descent, on September 3, 1976, Viking 2, in the usual pattern, got rid of ballast and opened the braking parachutes to make a soft landing in the region of the Utopia Plain. This is a rather strange terrain with a diameter of 300 kilometers, covered with rocks of different sizes. There are almost no craters here, and Utopia is located in the northern hemisphere of Mars. Apparently, it is itself an ancient impact crater, so huge that it is difficult to adequately identify. Since the landscape here is quite monotonous and dull, it is not surprising that the attention of scientists attracted a small cylinder perfectly visible in the photos that sent to Earth probe. The fact is that the main part of the Viking 2 activity is the collection of soil samples. For this purpose, the sampler was used, usually shrouded with a special cap when it was out of service. But as soon as the instrument came into readiness, the shroud automatically bounced off, hitting a nearby rock. Thus, the part remained on Mars as well as the Viking 2 itself. In general, the described situation is standard, as each spacecraft and its structural parts at the moment of landing on the Red Planet receive permanent residence on its lifeless expanses. Of course, the 30-centimeter-long shroud is too tiny a part to be seen from a satellite, but the Spirit lander, which landed on Mars on January 4, 2004, can be seen. It is now covered in impenetrable bronze sands in the Gusev crater and could well be confused with an ordinary rock, but there were times when the lander was very productive and many times exceeded the agency's planned activity time. Spirit was active until 2010, although it was not expected to last more than 90 Sol or 92.5 Earth days. Gusev Crater is an interesting location, perhaps once residing in lake status. But Spirit traveled not only along the bottom of this hypothetical ancient body of water. As much as he could, he traveled around all the nearby craters and hills. Unfortunately, the local storms rather quickly and significantly reduced the storage capacity of the rover's solar panels. So, how did it manage to recover? Surprisingly, even on Mars, the saying, "you can beat the wedge out of the wedge," works perfectly. Dust devils, small tornadoes, periodically passing over the surface of the planet helped to clean the batteries and thus prolonged the viability of the Spirit probe. The last communication session with the rover was made on March 22, 2010. Probably the death of the probe occurred due to battery failure. Also, it was preceded by getting stuck in the Martian sand. From the infernal trap, Spirit could not get free. It is still buried deep in a sand dune near a huge formation called the home plate, buried under a weighty layer of dust. What other spacecraft have found their demise on Mars? First of all, it is worth considering the unsuccessful attempts of soft landing on the surface of the red planet, which distinguished the following probes: Mars 2. Its wreckage is in the neighborhood of Xanth Earth, and it was the first artificial object to reach a planet in the solar system other than Earth. Mars 3. Its remains at the bottom of the Ptolemy crater were discovered by the Mars Orbiter satellite, Soviet Mars 6, which left a 4-meter crater in the Eritrean Sea after its fall. Mars Polar Lander, which entered the red planet's atmosphere and disappeared without a trace. The situation is still considered a mystery. Deep Space 2, participating in NASA's New Millennium program, made a fatal hard landing on the red planet. Britain's Beagle 2 successfully landed on the surface of Mars, but never made contact. The nearly intact probe wasn't discovered until 12 years later, in 2015. Schiaparelli, which crashed on the surface of the red planet, falling from a height of 4 kilometers. But this is not all. Among the craters and mountains of our nearest neighbor can be found spacecraft, for various reasons, stopped fruitful work. An axical among the probes was Opportunity, which in 2004 landed in the Eagle crater on the Meridian Plateau. The apparatus bypassed many craters, survived several dust storms, but the last tornado of planetary scale, the size of North America, which caught the rover in the Perseverance Valley, became fatal. Supposedly, Opportunity froze as the sun's rays had no way of reaching its batteries through the thick layer of dust. But there are still traces of this remarkable probe on Mars. Do you think there is no life on the red planet? Not as we know it, but the Phoenix of Steel is here nonetheless. The Mars rover was launched by NASA in 2007 and a year later began actively traveling across the surface of the polar region of Mars. It was the first rover to find water on the seemingly dead surface of our rocky neighbor. Unfortunately, Phoenix remained in the chilling embrace of the Martian Arctic, unable, as in a fairy tale, to rise from the ashes. Did all Mars rovers either turn to rubble, freeze, or become covered in dust? Of course not. At the moment, 5 probes are actively working on the surface of Mars, one of which is now making its first flights in the atmosphere of the red planet. By the way, based on the achievements of this innovative Mars probe, the project of a vehicle for the study of Titan called Dragonfly is being developed. If you look at a map of Mars or the surface of the planet from satellites, it becomes obvious that our dusty neighbor is not so lonely. In its valleys are actively snooping various probes: Curiosity, Insight, Perseverance, Ingenuity, and Tianwen-1, and some regions jealously keep traces of former disasters. So the future colonists who will soon settle the red planet will not feel alone. Without realizing it, we are already starting to settle Mars. Subscribe to the Hubble channel if you liked the video, share it with your friends, and don't miss our updates. Do you think space is boring? We'll try to change your mind.